in this story, you invest a lot in the crew. You want them to be able to function as a unit. You want them to build their individual talents and succeed. Well, almost. You know, it didn't always work. So, and they scale up. So when you have a certain version of a ship, you improve upon it, you build up. Okay, so they're the different enterprises, and don't even get me started on the reboot. Okay, now let's go over to Star Wars land. Some of you might be more happy over here. So in Star Wars, there are so many ships. Because true story, when Revenge of the Sith came out, and they had that final TIE fighter battle scene. This is like episode 4, 5, 6. And you're looking at that, and that was so much better than what came out in 1977. All those TIE fighters coming right at your screen. You're like, whoa, this is Star Wars. They have a lot of ships. There's no getting around that. Whether they're the big battle cruisers or the TIE fighters, or the X-Wing fighters, there's a ton of ships running around in the Star Wars universe. And those ships typically are singular purpose. I'm going to chase you down and kill you. These are not happy people. I'm just saying. But they're I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of science labs in there. I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of research going on in there. I mean, these are ships that are designed to control and manage a large galaxy full of people that they just want to just boss around and be mean to. Okay, crew investment. There's not really a lot of crew investment. Heck, in the early days, they just grew their crew. We don't need to go out and recruit people and put them through some sort of fancy schmancy academy. Let's just freaking clone the things and we're done. So yeah, not a lot of crew investment there. And again, this follows the cloud computing model, because in your machines in the cloud computing, you don't necessarily have a lot of multi-purpose machines. They're singular purpose. They're there to do the app. And if they fail, you just bring up another one or 2 or 3 or 4. This is what cloud computing is all about. And of course, they had some serious discipline issues with the crew as well. Because I'm sorry, I've read, that's like the worst job performance review ever. Just saying, not judging. Wait, yes, I am. So there you go. So Star Wars ships are about scaling out. You got a problem? Get more ships. That's the situation there. It's not about scaling up and going out in the galaxy to explore strange new worlds and build bigger and bigger ships. No, you got an issue. You just build some more ships. Some other differences. Healthcare. Star Trek, again, like the pets, you take care of them. You have state-of-the-art, cool-looking sick bays that take care of your crew and make them feel better, and and get them back on their feet and out into the ship. As a Star Wars, you just dunk them in this giant tank of whatever. And by the way, to date, I have not seen a human doctor running around in any of these. They use droids to take care of the humans in the tanks full of goo. So healthcare, not so much. Patch them up, get them on their feet. We don't care. Training, again, like I mentioned, Star Trek's all about the academy, getting everything back up to speed. Again, the pets model follows that very well, as opposed to Star Wars, where you have the cattle model. Training is basically just, hey, let's just take some farm kid from who knows where and throw him at the Death Star and see what happens. I'll get it all worked out, so it's all good. But, I don't know. That does not strike me as a big lot of training and planning. I don't know. And maybe I'm biased because, Red Hat has certification, but I'm not sure that's a good certification in the Force. Just saying. I don't know. Now, sometimes there are, because everybody has an exception. We say Star Wars scales out. They get a lot of ships. Well, not always. Twice they built this bad boy. Okay, they scaled up. Okay, they were not messing around here. They're like, oh, we don't need to build a bunch of ships. We're just going to build this bad boy and, send it around and, do terrible, mean things. Okay. And occasionally there were a few instances in the Star Trek universe where they would throw every single ship they had at a common enemy and hope that that worked out. But it's interesting to note that within the stories, within the universes created, and the worlds that were built in Star Wars and Star Trek, these examples didn't always work out. Throw a bunch of Federation ships at the Borg, and this might happen. It took creativity and multiple skills and diversity to defeat the Borg, not a whole bunch of firepower. And, we pretty much all know what happened to the Death Star when they scaled up, you know, every single time. Come on. So there you go. So sometimes the counterexamples didn't always work out so well. Because sometimes, but again, this gets back into, what you tell your customers and your users. Sometimes you do need the cloud. Sometimes you do need the whole, many ships do, good things well. You need the fighters. Or you need something like virtual machines where you need fewer specialized ships that can take on really specialized problems and deal with that in a particular way. And you can use both. You can, take things. Yeah, there's copyright violation all over this bad boy. You can use both. And in many organizations, there are situations where we will tell people, let's use virtual data center management for your, say, internal servers where you've got your accounting systems and your HR systems and whatnot. But if on your e-commerce systems where you are fortunate enough to get hammered at Christmas time and or any other major holiday where you're selling things around, you have cloud capabilities that can spin up your e-commerce servers automatically using elasticity and go from there. Okay, and use both and have them talk to each other. They don't have to be separate. All cases are based on use cases. So say we all. So that's the story within the story. Because I kind of like this because this is basically both. You got both worlds in one. So that's the metaphor. Take it or leave it. You can have it if you want. Maybe better, maybe worse than pets versus cattle. But all of the work that we do, everything we do in IT, whether we're writing the simplest code, is art. This is what I went back to before, where we've defined stories as art. We give that cachet. But I think that we in IT really need to recognize that what we do is the same kind of art. This is fractal representations, of higher mathematical concepts. And maybe one day we'll figure out a way to actually use this as data information transfer in a human language sort of way. But right now it just looks really ridiculously beautiful. It's art. So when somebody comes up to you and says, oh, you work with computers, oh, you're probably not that artistic. And maybe you are. Maybe you're working on, computers in your day job, and maybe you're a sculptor or part of the maker movement or something like that. And we're not kind of talking about that really, because I recognize there are individuals in this room, in this community, that are artistic in and of themselves in a traditional way. But I think you should challenge people that talk to you about this and say, no, what I do is also a creative way of doing it. Because when you create software, when you create a system, when you even build documents to explain how these systems work, you are telling the story. So with that, I have no idea where I am on time. That is my presentation, short and sweet. Any questions or comments? Yes. Yeah. And I was actually talking about this a little bit before you guys walked in, because it's like, okay, so Overt is it's the virtual data center manager in this story. So you have systems in the cloud like OpenStack and CloudStack and whatnot, or Amazon Web Services in the public cloud. Those are cloud-based systems, and those use the cattle metaphor, the Star Wars metaphor, whatever, where basically you treat individual machines as commodities, very transactional, and very elastic, as opposed to something like Overt, which is really a system that treats individual machines as special units. It still scales. We have one user that's using it in China, and they're deploying a virtual desktop interface, and they're deploying 12,000 virtual clients. I haven't confirmed this yet, but this is what they're telling me in one province in China. So it scales. It just doesn't scale instantly, elastically, because that's the beauty of cloud. Cloud just basically says, the app itself says, I'm running out of resources, I need help, talks to the cloud API, pulls it in, go. Whereas opposed to something like Overt, it lets you scale as well, but you decide as the human. The human's in the equation. Oh, we added a new team. We need some more mail servers. I'm going to spin some up and put them in this cluster. And Overt acts that way. It's a free open source project. Red Hat is involved in it, but we're not the only company that uses it as a commercial entity. Red Hat takes the open source code and repackages it as Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization. The company in China I mentioned, Cloud Times, they take it, repackage it. They have a commercial downstream version as well. And Wind River, which is a subsidiary of Intel, they also use Overt, and they have a tool called Open Virtualization that they sell and support for. So we're kind of unique because most Red Hat projects that we're involved in, it's basically a straight line between the upstream and our downstream. Well, we have 3 downstreams and 2 of them aren't even ours. So that's sort of the 30-second talk about that. And I was telling him, I was like, I really need to figure out a way to tie this back into what I do. So message received. So do you have any other questions? It uses KVM. So any KVM or QEMU shoe, KVM is I'm sorry. So he asked, does it use or work with KVM? And basically the answer is yes. It fully utilizes KVM. So any kind of KVM or QEMU virtual machine, it will run. It does not do Zen yet. Zen is another hypervisor that Citrix is heavily involved in. I will say that we are talking to them because at a level, if you go farther down the stack to there's a tool called libvirt down there. Both Zen and KVM use libvirt heavily. We're trying to figure out a way now if we're still sort of leaning on that one set of libraries, maybe we could start using Overt to talk to Zen machines, which once upon a time it used to do. And then it kind of stopped. But now we're thinking about integrating that back in. Yes, sir. At this time, at a very rudimentary level, because it can treat a container. Oh, he's asking, I like that. The question was, can it manage containers? And the answer is at this time it can on a very rudimentary level because it can sort of treat containers as just objects. It really doesn't do anything. It just says, oh, here's a container on this machine and containers A through F or whatever, and you can do that. However, with our work that we're doing in Project Atomic, we work that project, which is a container management system for not virtual machines, but for containers. It uses tools like Google's Kubernetes and whatnot. So a bunch of our engineers on the Overt team are looking at ways to say, okay, we could host a bunch of atomic virtual machines and have the containers running in there and use Kubernetes and talk to it and basically tap into those atomic machines and control the containers from outside, essentially from overt. And we're working on that now. I'm not sure that will be in 3.6, which is coming up later this summer, but I have a feeling it should show up in 4.0. A lot of what Red Hat is doing is moving towards the using containers in some way, shape, or form. Yes, sir. Well, so the question was, what's the difference between running like Overt? What's the advantage of using that versus Vert Manager? Vert Manager will let you run multiple machines, but it's kludgy and kind of, it's not easy. Like if I had about 5 or 6 virtual machines and that's all I had, yeah, I would use Vert Manager. But anything beyond that, and even really that too, Overt basically lets you manage anywhere from 2 to, again, 12,000 or maybe even more virtual machines. So you get, it's very much a dashboard-like interface, like on a feature parity with VMware vSphere. Okay, so you get that kind of control and management of your system. Okay, you're good. Okay, so he's asking what are some of the features that Overt would have perhaps that would be better than Vert Manager, since he's doing quite a few machines with Vert Manager. So things like domain management, individual disk management, individual storage management. You can manage multiple kinds of storage in the same domain. So you can do iSCSI, Fiber Channel, Gluster, Ceph, any of NFS, any of that in one. I'm going down the list, live migration between servers. So you can basically just, if you've got hardware that's getting squirrely on you, you can just basically pick the thing up and move it and not even bring the machine down. Live snapshotting. We're going to we have live snapshotting of machines now, and we're introducing live snapshotting of storage soon. So there's that coming in 3.6. So I would invite you to, visit the website, and we have pretty detailed lists of individual features. But basically, it's what you want to use. I mean, if you're getting along well with Vert Manager, then great, because it's KVM and whatnot.
So I have a quick comment question / answer. So I use Overt professionally. My department at university is running it. One of the other awesome things it has that you don't get with libvirt is that if you have an HTML5 web browser, you can get access to the consoles.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And you can't do that with Vert Manager. I've used it on an Android tablet late at night when I desperately needed to get to a VM console and just fix something real quick. And I was able to do it just with a tablet. So it's fantastic in that regard. Kimchi is actually, we should ask Brian to talk about Kimchi.
Well, Kimchi is a sub-project of Overt that was put together, and it's sort of like trying to take over the Spice HTML. It was not take over, but Kimchi was an alternative to the Spice HTML console. And if you can get it to work and it works, and for you, then great. Most of our users are using the Spice interface in the console that he described. So you may want to swing back and take another look. I will say to you, in all honesty, there hasn't been a lot of love to that sub-project. And it's sort of on my list of things to look at, because if we don't start seeing more activity soon, we may have to say, well, you guys are going to either have to go your own way or shut it down, because we haven't seen it. A lot of action on it. So hopefully that'll kick in. So the message is clear. Get more overt stuff into this presentation. Stop being all meta. All right, I hear you. Any other questions that I promised to repeat? Yes, sir? It was all meta. Well, again, I thank you for your patience. I certainly thank you for your time this afternoon on this, the last session of Southeast Linux Fest. Have safe travels back to you wherever you're going, and we will see you all next year. Thanks.
Citrix Zen Server gives you everything you need to integrate, manage, and automate a virtual data center, all on an enterprise-class, cloud-proven virtual platform, and at a third of the cost of other solutions. But why even bother with virtualizing your server infrastructure in the first place? Well, let's say you have a traditional one server to one application architecture, but you're running out of resources and performance is suffering. Once you order new server hardware, you'll wait for delivery. Configure it.
Your customers rely on your website or application. If it's slow or non-responsive, it infuriates your users and costs you money. Keeping your business-critical systems humming along requires insight into what they're doing. Your system metrics tell stories that can reveal performance bottlenecks, resource limitations, and other problems. But how do you keep an eye on all of your system's performance metrics in real time and record this data for later analysis? Enter Longview, the new way to see what's really going on under the hood. The Longview dashboard lets you visualize the status of all your systems, providing you with a bird's-eye view of your entire fleet. You can sort by CPU, memory, swap, processes load, and network usage. Click a specific system to access its individual dashboard, then click and drag to zoom in on choke points and get more detail. Comprehensive network data, including inbound and outbound traffic, is available on the Network tab, and disk writes and free space on the Disks tab, while the Process Explorer displays usage statistics for individual processes. The System Info tab shows listening services, active connections, and available updates. Adding Longview to a system is easy. Just click the button, copy the one-line installation command, then run the command on your Linux system to complete the process. The agent will begin collecting data and sending it to Longview. Then the graphs start rolling. Use Longview to gain visibility into your servers, so when your website or app heats up, it stays up.
Citrix Zen Server gives you everything you need to integrate, manage, and automate a virtual data center, all on an enterprise-class, cloud-proven virtual platform, and at a third of the cost of other solutions. But why even bother with virtualizing your server infrastructure in the first place? Well, let's say you have a traditional one server to one application architecture, but you're running out of resources and performance is suffering. Once you order new server hardware, you'll wait for delivery. Configure it. Install your business application, stage and test the server, and finally, add it to your production farm. If you've been through this process before, you know it can take weeks or even months. You also know it's a manually intensive process that will burden your team every time you outgrow your current setup. With a virtual server solution, you could accomplish all of that in less than half a day. Server virtualization software separates the OS and application from the underlying server hardware. And with multiple virtual machines on a single server, you can use each of them to run different OSs and applications. This makes it possible to move your virtual machines from one piece of hardware to another whenever you want, to maximize utilization, simplify maintenance, or recover from a hardware failure, and without slowing down your applications or users. Clearly, server virtualization provides big benefits, and Citrix Zen Server provides even more. Since it's built on an open platform, Zen Server plays well with your existing hardware, storage systems, and IT management software, as well as with the industry's leading cloud service providers. Best of all, you can get started by downloading a fully functional, production-ready version of Zen Server for free. After a 10-minute installation process, you'll see how easy it is to start virtualizing your workloads and automating your IT management processes. And when you're ready for a richer set of management tools, just upgrade to one of the premium editions of Zen Server. So whether you're interested in virtualizing servers for the first time, expanding your server virtualization footprint, or moving server workloads to the cloud, download and install Zen Server today and see how it can help you simplify your IT environment. Citrix Zen Server. Do more. Don't spend more.